I found out my brother was dead the same way I found out about everything else in high school, through someone else's whisper that stopped the moment I walked into the room. It was a Wednesday in October, third period Spanish. I was late because I'd stopped at the vending machine, and when I pushed open the classroom door, Mrs. Callahan looked up, and her face did something I'd never seen a teacher's face do before. She stood up. Teachers don't stand up when a student walks in late. She just stood there holding her dry erase marker and looking at me like I was standing on the edge of something. She asked if I could wait outside for a moment. I stood in the hallway for about 90 seconds before she came out and told me the counselor wanted to see me. No explanation. She put her hand briefly on my shoulder, which she had never done in 2 years of teaching me, and then walked back into her classroom. Through the door window, I could see the whole class watching me leave. Nobody was talking. The counselor's name was Mr. Devlin. I'd been to his office once sophomore year for a schedule conflict. He was the kind of man who kept a bowl of mints on his desk and never seemed particularly troubled by anything. When I walked in that Wednesday, he was standing too, and the mint bowl was pushed to the corner like he'd moved it out of the way, and I understood without anyone telling me that something had happened, that mints were not going to help. He asked me to sit down and then asked if I knew where my parents were. I said my mom was at work and my dad was probably home, and then I said, why? What's going on? And he said he'd been trying to reach them. He said there'd been something circulating among students, and he wanted to talk to me before I encountered it. I asked him what it was. He said my name, and then stopped. He picked up a pen and put it back down. He said that my brother Ryan's name had come up in connection with something, and he wanted to make sure I had support when I learned about it. Ryan was 22. He'd been living in an apartment 40 minutes away with 2 roommates since he aged out of the program he'd been in since he was 19. He had a job at a grocery warehouse that he'd kept for 14 months straight, which was longer than anyone had expected, and he called my mom every Sunday without fail. That was the thing about Ryan. Whatever else had ever been complicated about him, he called every Sunday. He hadn't called the previous Sunday. My mom had mentioned it at dinner Monday with this careful voice she used when she was trying not to make something bigger than it was. She'd left him a voicemail. She said he was probably just tired. I told Mr. Devlin that my brother was Ryan Marsh, and I asked him what was circulating. He took a breath and told me that a video had been shared the night before. He said it appeared to have been filmed by a bystander and that it had reached several students at the school. He said my brother's name was in the caption. I asked what kind of video. He said it was from a bridge overpass on Route 9. He said emergency services had responded. He said he was so sorry. The thing I remember most clearly is that I didn't cry right away. I sat in that office chair and thought about how Ryan used to pronounce the word particularly wrong until he was about 16. He'd say particularly. I used to correct him and he'd do it again on purpose to make me laugh. Mr. Devlin was saying something about my parents and about a phone, and I held up my hand and he stopped talking. I asked him if Ryan was gone. He said yes. I asked if people at school had watched it happen. He said he believed some students had seen the video before it was taken down. Yes. I sat with that for a moment. The idea that somewhere in this building, in classrooms I'd walked past that morning, people had watched my brother's last moments before I even knew he was gone. I asked Mr. Devlin if I could use his phone to call my mom. He slid it across the desk without a word. She picked up on the first ring, which told me she already knew.